Please come to order. It's 3:42. I'd like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Cordero, committee members Kiaina, Okimoto, and Tupola. Before we start our meeting, I have some procedural announcements to make pursuant to Act 220, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021. This meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Persons entering the council chamber to testify are requested to spread themselves out. If the chamber becomes crowded, persons may be requested to wait outside the chamber until called to testify. Oral testimony on each agenda item will be taken up when the item is taken up in the following order: in-person testimony in the council chamber, and then remote testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their full name and the agenda item they're testifying on. Each speaker will be limited to a 1-minute presentation per item. Act 220 requires all votes or remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call vote unless unanimous. Therefore, if any objections are noted, I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, may be posted by the city clerk and available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. So members, our first agenda item is Resolution 22-300, which relates to an appointment to the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation Board of Directors. We'll first proceed to in-person testimony. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify? Seeing none, are there any remote testifiers?
No, Mr. Chair.
And clerks, is there anyone standing by remotely to testify?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Very well. Do we have the appointee? Would you like to come up and introduce yourself and say a few words about why you would like to serve on the HART Board of Directors?
Is this on now? Yeah. Thank you, Chair Dos Santos and committee members. And thank you very much for taking up my nomination to the HART Board of Directors. I feel that as a board member, I have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure expenditures for the project is being spent properly and appropriately, and also just as important that information about the project is communicated to the stakeholders in a timely and accurate way. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Speaker Saiki for appointing me to the HART Board as a legislative appointee. As you know, the state of Hawaii legislature and the administration provided funding so that we could complete the project. And regardless of the appointing body, I'm always conscious of my duty to make sure that that the oversight provisions in the law are being followed. So thank you very much, council members, for taking up my nomination.
Members, are there any questions for the nominee? Vice Chair Kiaina and then Member Tupola.
Just comments. Mr. Yu, thank you for putting yourself forward. You clearly are doing a great job currently at the Oahu Transit Services, and of course you have previous experience at HART. So just want to wish you well in your endeavors, and I think it's an excellent nomination.
Thank you, council member. Appreciate those kind words.
Thank you.
Member Tupola.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to say that I think you have an excellent resume. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation and getting to know you. You know some of the best spots to eat on the West Side. Not only is he very versed in transportation, but he's very versed in what areas you should go to get the best sales. I'm grateful that we have someone with your knowledge and intellect for this particular position, because it is a very contentious, subject for people to see who gets put on the HART board. But I felt very confident in learning more about you and sitting with you that you'll do a great job. So we're excited to have you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, council member. I'm so happy that our conversation has some value, especially on the food part.
All right, members, any other questions or discussion? Yep.
Well, are
Vice
you going
Chair.
to share where the food places are? Just kidding. Okay, that was my last comment.
Well, we are doing the Dillingham Corridor, and Committee Vice Chair Cordero and I have been doing some exploration of the very good restaurants in Dillingham Corridor. So hopefully we can keep working on that. Member Okamoto, anything?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo, thank you for coming and meeting with, I know you've gone to all of our offices. I know I'm grateful that you came to mine. And I want to thank you for taking on this opportunity. I'm very grateful to know, and I'm excited that you are fiscally sound. And I think the people are really hoping that as this project goes forward, that we can make sure that we're not going to be irresponsible with the taxpayer dollars. And so I look forward to what you can do. And I know that you're walking into a situation that was not something that you created, but I think the people are really, we owe it to the people to be responsible with their dollars. So I look forward to what you can do. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to add some value to the project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, the chair recommends the resolution 22-300 be reported out for adoption. So any further discussion, any final discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. The next item, agenda item number 2, is resolution 22-281, which requests the city administration to provide an update to the council on the status of the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund and Program. And so this time I'll defer to the introducer of the resolution, our committee vice chair, Cordero.
Thank you, Chair Dos Santos Tam, and thank you for allowing us to hear this resolution, which requests for a status on a construction mitigation fund, transit construction mitigation fund and program. This was set up not by really anyone on this body or in this committee right now, but in anticipation and in support of businesses and just persons that are going to be impacted by the construction along the corridor. And with that, we know that there is an ability to input or implement funding into it that we can offer relief, or whether it be real property or any type of funding support for those along the corridor. With that, in the resolution, it does highlight a bit of history of when it was first implemented into the city budget, when there was funding added to it, and also a previous BFS or Budget and Fiscal Services Director's opinion, where it's HART's responsibility to determine which properties is deserving of such relief. However, HART is not in the business of real property, but we are. And so that's why I want to be able to get a follow-up and a status from the city administration, hence this resolution. And I know that we are, since this started back in 2017 or even before, this did have foresight for, going into the urban core or into the city center. But this also was through experiences that has occurred throughout, I guess, what has happened on the west side as well. So with that, I would love to hear from the city administration if they are looking to support continuing the funding, continuing to put funding into this transit construction mitigation fund, and how we can work as a body or as a city to offer such relief for those affected. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we, begin to ask the Budget and Fiscal Services Department, let's take some testimonies. We'll proceed with in-person testimony. Clerks, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right. We'll proceed with Mr. Soderholm. If you can press the button on there, and the red light should turn on, and then you'll be good to go. Yeah, there you go.
Council Chair De Los Santos, thank you very much for allowing me to testify. The first time I think I've met you, but I live in your district, in Upper Nuuanu, where it's raining right now. So I came down to the lowlands. I'm Vice President, Solar Home Sales and Leasing. We are located on the lucky corner of Puhali and Dillingham on the Malka side, kind of catty corner from OCCC and across from the blood bank. And so I submitted written testimony for you folks. I was able to get it in. It was kept saying pending, but it got in. So the big thing that I just wanted to talk about was, what's the plan? What's the plan? I talked to Rick Blangiardi. I went in and talked to Council Cordero, and I've talked to Joey Monahan a bunch of times, who originally put this in there. So Rick actually told me a story that when he was at Hawaii 5 channel, whatever, that he did a study on the businesses and the residences on Kamehameha and Farrington. And a lot of those don't exist anymore. They were run out of business. And you can put up plate lunch signs and all that kind of stuff, but when you run out of small mom and pop shop, it's done. We have 12 families we support. That doesn't sound like a big deal against Walmart, but it's all 12 families that I pay in excess of union dues. I'm anti-union, but I pay more than union to do that, to support the families, because that's what it takes to live in Hawaii. And so I know I'm over a minute, so if anybody has any questions, I'm available. But I think that what I think that should happen is we should find out how much money is in there. What's the criteria for it? If Dillingham Corridor doesn't meet the criteria, nothing meets the criteria. We're basically being shut down by Hart and Nan. And so I think that we should have a meeting down in Kalihi, at Kalihi Kai Elementary. Bring everybody down. There's only 10 families that live on Dillingham. And there's only just a few small businesses. So I'm talking about from Kalihi to Middle Street. And so I'm available. And is there any questions?
Hey, members, any questions for Mrs. Soderholm?
I just want to thank you for coming out, and I was going to ask you if you're willing to discuss such criteria, and you actually answered my questions, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm willing to talk, and I'm willing to walk the neighborhood and talk to everybody. If people don't want to be bought out, that's their kuleana, that's fine. But if some people want out, we want out, but I don't want it just to be about us. We bought 4 lots down on Mokoea, and it took 3 years to get our permits. We finally have our permits. Now we're trying to get financing. And so it's going to take us 3 years to get out of there. So, one thing that people don't realize is that as of December, the cones are up between all the cross streets on Dillingham, and you cannot make a left-hand turn out.
Mr. Soderholm, I'm sorry, we're talking about the Transit Construction Fund. So
Yeah.
we can talk about the configuration of the construction either offline or at at our business and community meeting that we normally see each other at.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
Aloha.
Soderholm.
Bye-bye.
Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Are there any other in-person testifiers on this matter? Are there any remote testifiers on this matter?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there anyone standing by remotely to testify?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to double check. Members, we are now in discussion. If we are able, could we bring up Director Kawano to, if members have any questions, or perhaps share about the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund and Program?
Good afternoon, Transportation Chair Dos Santos and council members. I am, for the record, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. So as Councilmember and Budget Chair Cordero mentioned, the recitals recapped a lot of what happened in the 2017 to 2019 timeframe. The Transit Mitigation Fund was set up, as mentioned, and was initially funded. However, there was no action, and the funds lapsed. So my understanding is that the fund remains inactive right now. I watched some of the recordings of prior testimony of my predecessor, and some of the issues brought up was exactly what Mr. Soderholm mentioned, in that administration needed to come up with rules, eligibility criteria, and procedures to do the assessment and provide relief. And I think that still has to happen based on where we are today. Currently, we've asked Real Property Assessment to provide us with all of the parcels and evaluation of all of the business owners. They're going to include everything, even government-owned properties, along the Dillingham Boulevard corridor. And we're going to take a look at that and work on a plan. So essentially what's going to happen is we're going to start from scratch and then come up with a plan and work with council members to get to a solution.
Yeah. Vice Chair Cordero?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Director Kawano, I was wondering, because the resolution is specific to the, oh no, that's not even it, the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund, as it is inactive, how are we able to activate it? And do you support implementing or incorporating funding into it so that we can build up the fund to support those along the corridor?
The fund's still there, in terms of an account. I'd like to really understand what is going to be involved, and depending on how we decide to fund relief when we go forward, we may or may not need this account, to use this account, and I just want to make sure we do it the right way. So at this time, I need to understand, better, the best approach to move on this, and the most efficient approach as well.
I understand. Okay, thank you, Director Kawano. And I was wondering, okay, if it's if this fund is not necessary, what? I guess we don't have the answer right now unless we figure out all the criteria plus all the properties that is going to be affected, and also the timeline of how much relief or when relief will occur and whatnot, right? So would you be open to hearing from the businesses and residents from what? I guess certain criteria which the testifier, Mr. Soderholm, actually brought up.
Oh yes, definitely, and. We understand that we're probably going to have to look at financial statements, maybe for more than a year. We want to ensure that the loss incurred is due to rail construction and not anything else. We also understand that a lot of the businesses are still struggling to recover from the pandemic, so that's another issue. So. It's gonna take some time, and as the predecessor said, it could require more staffing if we decide to go the route of through application process. But I think we're gonna have to think this through a little more. I'm not in a position right now to say that I support or oppose it, but what I'd like to do is the right thing. I want to make sure we do the right thing going forward.
Thank you, and I appreciate your commitment to being able to formulate a plan, the criteria, and timeline for this to be considered. And I hope that we can move forward beyond the committee to discuss this with or without the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund. However, I do support allowing for the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund to remain as a source of support, whether or not it is this year or next year, but moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair Kiaina, and then Councilmember Tupola.
Director, in the resolution, I notice the clause asking for 30 days status report. And do you believe you need more time? I mean, I know for myself, sometimes I insert ambitious deadlines. I did so for the Lanikai Lanikai Transportation Management Plan. I put 90 days because I thought we could get it done, and it's nearly 6 months, but it's almost complete, and I expect a good report. So I guess, having said that, I do believe this is a good dialogue. So I'm grateful that Councilmember Cordero is looking after her district, and but 30 days is short. Would you like to have that modified? And maybe I'll ask the author if she's open to modifying the reporting deadline for this.
Yes, I would appreciate it, because the focus right now is getting the budget in front of you for next year. So yeah, that would be very helpful.
So
to have
90
an
days,
extension.
90 days. And I guess the author, Councilmember Cordero, maybe you yourself would want a certain time frame that you would like to propose, whether it be 90 days or 6 months.
I think that's a very good question, especially in light of budget timelines.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kiaina. Okay, let me think. I think it is a good consideration for as we go through the budget, but this discussion will continue through the budget as well. And I hope that we have that commitment to start planning to, like I said, continue that conversation. And with that, I would like to see that, I guess 120 days after, yeah, after adoption.
We can do that as in full council.
Okay.
Or if,
Or
I
if
know,
we can write it down now, we could.
Chair, I know Chair Waters, actually, he doesn't like too many floor amendments. I think the Office of Council Services can agree that this could be an oral amendment, 220 days instead of 30 days.
Okay, very well. Okay, we can do that at the end. Councilmember Tupola?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Cordero, for bringing this up. Although it's not my district, I drive on Dillingham almost every day because my kids go to school there. I think every orange cone on this island is on that street. There are so many cones, it's crazy. So two thoughts that I'm having is that on the state side, whenever we had a fund, we had to have a mechanism whereby there was a contribution to it, right? So it could be like a cigarette tax, it could be like a, X amount annually. So as you prepare to report back to Councilmember Cordero, I guess my thought would be like, if it's going to come regularly, because in the resolution it said that it came from property tax. So I'm guessing it came as a one-time amount of the $1 million, but it wasn't like how we have for clean water natural land funds where it's 0.5% every year. So you basically have funds incoming all the time. So I guess my question would be like, where would the funds come from? Like, where would it make sense? And if it could come from somewhere where either if it needs to be ongoing, because every time we've talked to Hart, they've all kind of emphasized that Dillingham's going to be like the mother lode. Like, it's the toughest part. There's so much utilities. So we really don't know unless Mr. Manahan wants to tell us exactly when we're going to be done with Dillingham. But if we don't know, then there needs to be some type of contributing, like, X amount will be added every year until X is done. So that's just a thought, that when we talk about this, there should be a method of contribution. The second thought I had is that the nonprofit relief program that OER ran for a one-time surgence of money. So they basically got, 100 million or something crazy from the federal government. They opened the portal for 1 month. They had applications. It was really specific. basically, if you applied in that 1 month, they were going to allow everyone to get funds as long as they could show profit and loss, and they were going to basically spend down the whole fund. So I thought that their model was pretty good because everything was real clear on the front end, that you had this time to apply, this is the application, when the funds are gone, for this moment, that's how much we're going to be exhausting. So just a thought, as far as a model of, what would you call it, deliverance of funds. So I was just concerned about incoming funds and then executing the release of funds to businesses. So if that helps you at all, because I do think it's a valid concern that all the businesses do want to stay open, and who knows how long those cones will all be up, or how long, they're going to have some restricted type of entry into their business. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Members, any other questions? Councilmember Say, noting the presence of Councilmember Say.
Yeah. Director Kawano, would it be possible that if you want to replenish the mitigation fund, that we try and maybe consider capping the TAT or the GET, that the excess of what is calculated in the overall construction budget, the excess goes to this mitigation fund? Does it make sense?
So to repeat the question was, could we consider capping the Oahu TAT, the city's TAT,
Yes.
the 3% TAT, and then putting the access into the mitigation fund? That would require ordinance, right? We're going to have to amend current ordinance.
Well, that's a discussion we need.
That's a discussion I think we should have. What it's going to do is it'll take away, right, from what we were going to do, with the funding elsewhere. I think we got to look at the big picture, right? Beyond Dillingham, all of Oahu's taxpayers pay into real property taxes, and with regard to TAT specifically, it's the traveler, right? It's the visitor that comes here. So I think the discussion has to center around, what's the best source of funding for this mechanism if we decide to move forward.
But see, it's all related to rail anyway. It's just that you're trying to create a sub-account, which is the mitigation fund, within the TAT or the GET fund. That's all I'm thinking about. But no, I'm happy we're having this discussion. But I just bring it up for discussion, that's all. Because that way we can try to see that the fund is solvent enough that it could take care of the emergencies.
Okay. Members, are there any other questions for the director? Okay. I have a few questions, given that the Dillingham corridor is also in my district, Diamond Head of Kapalama Canal. In the resolution, it points out that under the previous administration, the previous Department of Budget and Fiscal Services took the position that HART should be fully responsible. And in the Be It Further Resolved clause, it asks the department to provide an update that includes the division of responsibility between HART and BFS in this. And so I wanted to ask, is it the position of your department that it is HART's responsibility, a shared responsibility, or fully or maybe mostly within BFS?
I think it should be a shared responsibility. Once we understand what we have to do, HART has some limitations in terms of how it can use its funds, right? Most of it has to be focused on rail construction. All of it has to be. So I think we need to understand, okay, who's out there, what's the damage, what's the best approach to fund relief, and how should we allocate the responsibilities, between HART and the city. I think all of that has to be explored. Like I said, we're in the process of gathering information currently to understand, what resides along that corridor, who operates as businesses. We understand that government owns a lot of the land, and other large landholders. Are the businesses mostly tenants? Because I think that was discussed last time, back in 2019. If we use taxes to provide relief, the relief would usually go to the taxpayer, the landowner, but how do you ensure that the business or tenant or lessee receives benefit as well? So, I mean, those all have to be those questions have to be thought out and built into the rules and criteria that we set to, drive the program, if you will. So that there's a lot of, I think, discussion and study that still has to happen.
I appreciate that clarification because I think it is very helpful that BFS is now taking the position in this administration to be a part of the solution through this program. My next question is under 655.4, which talks about the ways that the existing Transit Construction Mitigation Fund can be utilized. It talks about reestablishment grants, business interruption grants, and working capital advances or loans. Does this preclude us from doing things like real property tax abatement, which is just reducing it by a certain amount, or maybe a deferral in which we set up some sort of payment, reduce it now, but set up some sort of payment plan after rail construction is done, and we have all this wonderful TOD and new customers and things like that?
I think you brought up some good points. Those are all different tools in the toolbox that we can look at, definitely. And at the end of the day, we're going to be using our main source of revenue to fund the relief. So we just have to, it has to be equitable. It has to be, we have to do it accurate. It has to be done efficiently. And I think if we, have the right, guiding principles that to follow to do the right thing, I think we'll have a good program in place. But there's going to be a lot of work involved, and I appreciate the, extension of time so we get it done right.
To that point, speaking of the extension of time, Councilmember Cordero, do you have any recommendations for
Sure.
the amount of time?
I just looked at the calendar. I didn't look at the calendar correct. I thought we were still in January for some reason. I would like to, it is more than 30 days, but less than 120 days at 90 days to report back to the council.
Yeah. And that fits within the budget cycle?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Director, is that okay?
We're going to do our best.
Okay.
That's all I can say. Thank you.
I'm sure all of us, especially the two of us whose district is on Dillingham, will support you in that. Yeah.
I do want to add that I appreciate the discussions that I've had with yourself, plus Managing Director and Chief of Staff Sam Oku, and that the discussions that some of the businesses have had with Mayor Blangiardi as well in the past month or a few months, or a few weeks, I should say. So thank you very much. I do recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, members, any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, the chair recommends that Resolution 22-281 be reported out for adoption with the amendment. Sorry, what? Oh.
You have to vote on the amendment first.
Oh, we have to do the amendment first. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. The chair recommends that Resolution 22-281 be amended, as we discussed, to provide that instead of 30 days in the final be it further resolved clause, that it be 90 days in the further be it resolved clause. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Okay, hearing none, Resolution 22-281 is amended to the CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 22-281 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Public testimony is complete on this. Any reservations from council members? Okay, hearing none, so ordered. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. It's 4:17. Thank you, everyone.